All right. I call the planning board meeting to order at 6:02 on January 5th. My name is Stephanie Slysz. I'm the chair of the planning board. I have Jimmy Tarr all the way to my right as our alternate chair, Paul Dostal on the board, and Bob Wagner to my left. And we have Gerard Bueno, our administrative assistant. The first part of our agenda is public forum. This is the opportunity for folks who are here virtually or in person who are not a part of the agenda tonight to come up to the microphone or request to speak. Now is the time for folks who are not on the agenda to request and come up and speak to us. All right. We close public forum. First item on our agenda is the formal discussion for an A&R lot for Paul Cernak on Straits Road. Paul, would you come down to the microphone here? This is something that, just in case the board has any questions, this is approval not required is what A&R stands for, and it's for a part of a lot on Straits Road. It looks like it's a 7-acre parcel that's going to be a 7.1 acre parcel that's going to be a part of a building lot. It looks like the size of a building lot, 200 feet frontage. Right on Straits Road, kind of close to the Black Birch Vineyard entrance, for folks trying to visualize that. And it's on the opposite side of Black Birch. Is there any questions from the board to the applicant regarding the parcel and the way that they're looking at putting the lot lines there?
Oh, he's got 200.
Pretty straightforward.
Yep. All right, with that, and if there isn't any discussion.
Just for sale?
That's probably the goal.
Pardon me?
That's probably going to be my goal. Test the waters anyways.
Right. So we're not approving any particular use of the property. We're just acknowledging the area meets the zoning district and the frontage meets the required frontage.
Yeah, he's got 49,000 square feet, so he's more than, need 45. So.
Yeah, and it's a 1.137 acre parcel that will then be, we will create by voting on this tonight.
Okay.
All right, if there's not any discussion, can I get a motion?
I make a motion we approve the A&R application for Paul Cernak.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Motion passes. Yeah, and we have to sign these copies, so if we can do that at the end of the meeting, he will pick it up from Gerard tomorrow and should be good to go. Does that work?
Where would I get it from here?
My office is office 106.
Okay.
So it's second door on the left when you're walking this way.
Right.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Take care. Right.
All right. Next item on the agenda are some informal discussions. I just like to note for everyone that there's no decisions or anything like that being made tonight. These are just the starts of conversations, or in some cases, follow-up conversations to previous meetings. First item on the agenda is related to Black Birch Vineyard on Straits Road, talking about, just for some context, it was a few months ago, maybe it was over the summer, there was some neighborly concern about some of the music that was coming from the vineyard. They came just to double check and to make sure they were in violation of the permit. We deemed that it was fine, but something that they should come before the board maybe in the winter in order to clear up some of the maybe gray areas of some of the permit, or consider reapplying for another special permit. This is something that we were hoping to have happen anyway, but then there was also kind of, it came back up again when there was the renewal of the entertainment and farm winery pouring license. Kind of came to our attention through that process that maybe there needs to be a conversation around around the permit. So we have both of the entertainment licenses, the entertainment license that was issued and the pouring permit that was issued, and then we also have a copy here of what we passed. I wasn't on the board then, but what we as a board at the time passed March 22nd in 2017. And so we're just here to we have Michelle here from Black Birch. If you don't mind moving closer to the mic, just to have an informal conversation about one, like how your summer went is something that you, talking a little bit about, some of what we think maybe would warrant some more conversation on for what I think is kind of a missing and gray area in the permit, more around private events and that kind of thing, to make sure we're all on the same page and have something to come back to when people might think that there's violations or that kind of thing. So, and although it's not our job to enforce the permit, it is our purview to issue the permit, and so it's on us whatever we passed. So that's kind of why you're here today.
Well, obviously when we first got the permit, we didn't even have a business up and running at that point, so we kind of put it out there that 12 to 6 was what we thought would work for us, well, as things evolved and changed. And, we kind of had to branch out in different avenues in order to be able to actually make enough money to pay for what we do there. Because 12 to 6 just wasn't, like, our basic premise was to be open to the winery as to open to the public as a winery doing tastings from 12 to 6, which is what we still do. So we're still open to the public 12 to 6, but we've branched out and done these, small family gatherings after hours, or have held, small private events for fundraisers and things like that after hours, because there's no way we can actually do it during the 12 to 6 time frame. It just doesn't work in terms of the amount of people, space, and all that. So we're basically proposing, for flexibility of what we do, is to be able to conduct business from anywhere between 10 a.m. and 10 p.m. So this is not going to be a daily thing, but it would just rather give us the flexibility to, on the busier months for us, which is what we know to be May and June and September and October, where we have those private events after hours. We might have a music series with a couple of concerts in the evening, and that sort of thing. And we're still going to keep our basic open to the public from 12 to 6 on Wednesday to Sunday, but then be able to offer these other opportunities for people to utilize our space. Whether it might be a yoga class in the morning before 12 o'clock, or, for example, Signature Sounds contacted me again recently and asked if, we would be interested in doing something. So, last year we did the concert series that was on Sunday evenings that went until 8:30, generally the music finished up at 8:30. We're always, conscientious of sound and time and that sort of thing, so that we don't, impact our neighborhood, in terms of traffic and noise and things like that. But that's, the 10 to 10 just offers us flexibility, and then we would be working in between those times without infringing on what our permit allows us to do.
Did you ask for those times to be on the liquor licenses and the entertainment license?
I don't think I did. Because the entertainment license, it's more of a rarity than it is, a frequent thing. So I kind of have to guess what I thought was going to be what we would be doing. It can kind of change from year to year based on, you know, what's going on. So it's not, it's more of a dynamic thing as opposed to a set schedule. So yeah, and then the pouring permit, obviously, I don't even remember requesting it going to 11 o'clock. I think originally it said to 11, but we've never had anything past 9:30, so.
So I think, if I may speak, I think, Michelle, we would like to, I personally, as a member of this board, would like to do whatever we can for you guys to be successful. But in order to do that, we need to be dotting all of our i's and crossing all our t's. And so right now, as I see this, and this isn't to say that this can't change, but your pouring license, which is, was only signed on December 8th of last year, so it's in effect, it's the one that's in effect currently, only allows you to, the pouring license is only from 12 p.m. to 6 p.m. So if you want to do what you're talking about, that would have to, you would have to get an amendment to that, which is none of our business, but still. And your entertainment license, which runs through the end of this year, again, is from 12 to 6, whether that's indoor or outdoor entertainment.
Yeah, and that, from my understanding, when I spoke with Karen, that this was the first step in making any changes to our special permit, and then there could be amendments to both those
Right.
based on what and what the result would be here.
Right, so they wouldn't put on, like, they would follow the decisions from the special permit to put the
Yes.
hours on these.
Yes.
So in order to get the hours extended on those, we have to work
Yeah.
on
Right.
a different permit.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I
Make a
think that
modification
the
to it.
important thing then is for you all to come in formally to ask for an amendment or a new decision on a site plan, so that we can not only get this to where it needs to be and we're all in understanding, because right now, any of the things that you just talked about are technically in violation
Yeah.
of your permit.
Yeah.
So that way, the public has a chance to comment, we can maybe make our decision may be influenced by some of the comments that are made, and those might be reflected in conditions that are placed on the permit. But once that's set, everybody knows what the deal is.
Yeah,
Yeah, because I think a lot of it came from gray area stuff where someone would be like, yeah, that's fine, and other people would be like, no, that's not explicitly stated.
yeah,
Yeah.
and that's why I'm proposing that whether we need to reapply for the special permit or make an amendment to it, like, the hours that I'm proposing just kind of blankets us for all of these things, but not to say, like I said before, this is not, you know, a daily thing that we'd be doing. This is just gives us flexibility to, you know, maybe do a couple of concerts in the springtime or the early summer, and then have these private events, which are, you know, pretty much from May until, you know, we have occasionally out through May through October, you know, 1 or 2 weekends a month, and that sort of thing.
Michelle, how many people did you get at these concert events this past year?
We capped it at 200.
Okay. And are you thinking of capping at 200 again? And is that something you'd be, a limit that you'd be willing to put as part of your application?
Yes, I mean, I know that we've had events there during the day, during our regular business hours, that we've done up to 300 people and had no issues with that. So the concert series, if I were to up it, and I just happened to talk to Peter today, we said 250 would be the cap on that. So, I mean, we don't want to, you know, we don't want to be another Woodstock, for example. You know what I mean? It's just these are just nice, mature audience. You know, these are reputable bands. The Signature Sounds is a really good company to work with, and it's just a you know, nice avenue for people to enjoy. So
I think we just need to make sure that it's all clear.
Right.
You know, like,
Yes,
for
yeah.
example, I personally don't consider, you know, my 70th birthday at your place, if I were to have it there. to be one of the advertised events that you now have no more than once a month. But if Signature Sounds is having a show there, yeah, someone may argue, well, but they're a private business. But that's an advertised event. They're not going to just, it's not just an in-house party. I mean, they're actually advertising. So we need to make sure we're really clear as to what's an advertised event that falls under that limit versus those things that you do with a private party, whether it's a wedding or a birthday party or.
And also, I think, like being clear on what your public hours might be and like what the hours might be more for private events might be helpful for the public too, especially, don't want people thinking it's till 10 o'clock every night, Black Birch is open.
Yeah. I mean, we don't want to be a bar, so that's why we don't stay open after 6. But we have a great facility that's can be utilized, and it's an added piece of income that we really can use. So,
I guess that would be the next step is applying for a special permit, whether it's an amendment and filling out what you're asking for with that, and then that would trigger us to to notify the abutters so that they have input in this and are notified about this, and so we'd have a neighborhood conversation about this.
My suggestion would be extremely specific.
Yes,
But also in ways that doesn't,
Right, but just be really specific so there's no gray areas about what's, is it in or is it out, so to speak.
Yeah, no, I understand, and it makes more sense to us now that we've been running the business for a few years, so we know what works and what doesn't work and what we like and what we don't like. So, that'll be a lot easier for us to put together for sure.
Great.
So I would encourage you to get it in sooner rather than later so that you're ahead of whatever your spring schedule looks like.
Is there a formal application to actually fill out then? Do I get in touch with you about that? Okay.
Yeah, Gerard, you can get in touch with Gerard with that, and then, if we get all the stuff in time, we could have it at our next meeting in February, which would be February 2nd.
Yeah, that sounds good. Cool. Yeah, I mean, obviously, I don't want to have to worry about having to deal with this over the summer.
Yeah.
Right.
So when we're in full swing with stuff, so no, I'd be happy to figure out what'll work best and make sure everyone's happy with it. So
Great.
okay. All
Good.
right.
Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Sooner than later.
Well, everybody.
Sooner than later.
All right, next item on the agenda is discussion with Bernie Smiarowski about a potential grow facility on North Hatfield Road, marijuana grow facility. This is, again, just an informal discussion. I think where he's here with Berkshire Design Group. This is, not any sort of formal application or anything, just kind of had some preliminary questions for us as a board as they go ahead with the process of working on the application. I know there's some folks joining virtually, so hopefully we can get them a nice picture of the map there. So Bernie reached out to me saying that there was a question potentially about our zoning bylaw, and I thought it might be a good opportunity for him to come before the board before there's any sort of formal application filed on this to kind of, I know you're meeting with Conservation Commission this month as well, so I think it's a good opportunity to get it out there in the public before that meeting, and maybe the community meeting that you all have to host at some point too happens as well. So yeah, and then answer any sort of questions that you have to make your, when you go forward with your plans.
Sure. Thank you. Bernie Smiarowski. I'm here tonight with Chris Dramerland from Berkshire Design and my friend and business partner, Gerard Glansberger. What we are proposing is actually 3 to 4 grow facilities on the Motica property, along with potentially a solar field on a smaller solar field on each end of that property. Why don't I let Chris take over?
And so the first image here is just to orient us with the location. That's the outline of the property. This is the CNS facility down here, North Hatfield Road and Straits Road, and this is a through lot.
How many acres is that lot?
38 acres roughly.
Okay, so that's a large lot.
And so for scale, this is about an 800-foot frontage on this side here.
Which side is that, Straits Road?
Yes.
Straits Road side, yep.
The printing on that little printout is very small to read.
Sure, and typically I bring half-size plans, and I forgot that today, so I apologize for that, but we'll, certainly next time when we come back.
Do you have, I'm sorry, just an address for that? Is there a,
I believe it is 60 North Hatfield Road. Yeah, 60 North Hatfield Road.
Is there
Even
any
though
houses
the majority
on
of
it?
the frontage is on
nope,
Straits.
no houses on
There's
it?
no house on that.
Usually if there's no houses, there's no house number. It'll just say
Yeah, it's listed on the assessor's office
it's
that way,
60.
so.
Maybe there
There
was a
is-
house.
Yeah, there's a barn here, so perhaps there's
Oh, okay.
something. I mean,
That's probably
yeah,
how they
We
identify
don't really
it.
know. In any event, this is a larger scale of the plan. Essentially, there's a series of agricultural ditches that are legally wetlands that divide the site. There are about 5 existing grow areas that you can see here. And
Can you see what
this
which ones
is
he's talking about?
extremely
The green ones?
conceptual.
Yeah.
But the intention
only got
is for
4.
Field 1 here to potentially house greenhouses.
Greenhouses.
And then these 3 fields to be outdoor cannabis cultivation fields. And then this location here on North Hatfield Road to be a potential solar array, which would be dedicated actually to the power needs of the facility itself. That would most likely not be in an initial special permit. We would presumably have a second permit later to deal with the solar separately so as to not complicate things even further. It's a very large site, so obviously the basic dimensional regulations are all satisfied quite easily. The biggest thing that we wanted to make sure that we were very clear on is that this is in the rural residential zone, and so there is the additional requirement of a 500-foot setback, which seems pretty clearly to be measured from residential building to any security fencing. And in this case, the entirety of the facility has a perimeter security fence, so that would definitely apply. And so what we've done is that we've looked at all of the buildings, anything that appears residential, we've presumed to be residential, and offset a 500-foot radius around that. We've excluded barns. We have included attached garages, just not quite sure. It doesn't make a huge difference, but that's what we've assumed. That essentially excludes this field on North Hatfield Road from any grow opportunity, which is primarily why that has ended up as solar, which is a nice synergistic kind of use. And so, as you can see, these red outlines are 500 feet around all of the residential buildings we have identified, including another one over here. And in fact, this area here is wooded currently. And so because of that offset, this would be preserved from being part of the marijuana cultivation facility. There'd be access, again, extremely conceptual, subject to change. But in this scheme, access off of Straits Road, and then we would utilize the existing farm roads for circulation within the site. Part of that is for wetlands reasons, is that we should be able to reuse those existing crossings and culverts that cross these ditches, but if we started to create new crossings, that could potentially be more complicated. And so, really there's 2 things that we wanted to confirm is just is what I just described, in basic conformance with the intent of the zoning bylaw. Obviously, special permit criteria is a whole separate matter. We're not discussing that tonight. And then there's another part of the zoning bylaw that states, specific to marijuana facilities, the special permit may be limited to the current applicant. And so what's important in this model is that, Bernie's obviously got his own grow facility that was permitted here. The intention here is almost as a developer relationship would be to own and impose requirements on the growers, but Bernie would not be the licensee of these facilities. He would then lease these fields to separately licensed grows, because under the Massachusetts regulations, there's a cap as to how much grow area any one person or organization may control. And so that sort of creates a complication here, and there's some ambiguity in it because there's a may in that bylaw, so I think we'd want to have some dialogue as to how the board would look at that sort of situation. Obviously, any conditions that were created would be binding on the owner, who would then have a responsibility to ensure that those are binding on any tenants. But we want to understand some of the intricacies of that before these guys spend too many resources on chasing this project. So I think that's
Yeah, no, that sums it up.
mostly it.
So I got a question right off. The structure to the left, about a third of the way up on your picture to the left, all the way over to the left,
Off of the property.
off of the property, the structure off, down,
Down.
straight down. Keep going,
That one.
that, right there. Is that 500 feet from the corner of the fencing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
It's that circle in the middle. If you,
Yeah, so this building has an offset shown right here of 500 feet, which actually falls in the wetlands.
Okay.
So the proposed fence would be here outside of the wetlands. And so in all of these cases, here is where it's the closest, is this building here. 500 feet offset from the footprint of that building is this red line, which is exactly where we propose to put that security fence.
Okay.
And Bernie, when you were doing your introduction, you mentioned the potential of solar fields at both ends. So are you thinking that perhaps that corner of Straits Road that's trees now might be where the other solar field goes?
If the town allows it, we would consider that.
Okay, but that's not at all even
That's,
in your...
we were just thinking that really today.
It did come up just today.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because the one thing is, as Chris noted, is leaving that in trees obviously provides a significant buffer screening,
Yeah.
if you will, visual
Yes.
screening to the fence, to the two houses that would be closest, still within the 500, and I acknowledge that.
Yep.
Whereas the other two houses are significantly further away, and as you just pointed out, the fence is well beyond where the wetlands are. And if I remember correctly, from looking at this on Google Earth before I left, there's trees in that area as well.
Yeah, I believe that, actually, I believe this entire wetland area is.
It's all wooded. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a wooded wetland.
Yeah.
So there'd be
It's-
very little exposure, if you will, from either road to,
Yeah, it's very secluded.
So that area we're just talking about, is that planned to, as left, or is that planned to have something done with?
So we just began contemplating putting
Right.
solar in that area.
Well, so what I'm wondering is, how are you going to put solar in a wetland?
no.
So we're talking about two different areas. There's this area, which is upland and wooded.
Yep, that I know.
Would potentially be contemplated for solar.
Right.
This area that's wetland would be untouched because it
Okay.
wouldn't be permitted to.
So it just happens to be that the most energy intensive part of the facility that's contemplated is the greenhouses.
Right.
And so having the solar be on the east side, on the Straits Road side, would be more convenient from a distribution perspective for us. But, we do have solar there on the property as well, and we would work out the feed-in tariff rate for our lessees on the property. So there would be solar, we hope. And if we could use that southeast corner for solar, that would be wonderful. And we would leave a tree line there, knowing full well that it would cast shade, but to the extent that the partner that would be providing the financing for the solar would suggest that we could put solar in that place, then we would contemplate putting solar in that corner. But we're not stuck on it. We literally started talking about it today, so we wanted to run that by you guys and see how that fell on your ears.
I think it's also valuable, as noted perhaps by Chris, that those are phase 2 and phase 3 perhaps.
Yes.
Pardon the pun, but.
No,
That's right.
definitely.
But I have a question for you, and this maybe is to Bernie. So the greenhouses, are you growing out of the ground on those, or how are you growing under those greenhouses?
Well, we actually haven't started yet this year.
No, but I mean, yeah, like here or up there, what would you envision here? Is this, are you growing out of the ground, or you're put?
Well, eventually, they're gonna be grown on these rolling tables.
Okay. So I have a question for you.
Sure.
Since I went to my handy dandy soils map.
Yeah.
you got a lot of Walpole on this, which of course, as you well know, is not the greatest farm ground in the world.
That's what I'm teaching my partner, exactly.
But this corner is the best farmland on this ground.
The
on
ones where
this
you
lot,
have
where
the-
you-
Of that property.
Of that property.
It is.
Where you've got the greenhouses is the best soils you've got on this parcel. So I'm wondering why not have that be take opportunity to grow in the best soils where you're actually growing out of the ground and move your greenhouses over to the Walpole.
Well, I'm kind of spoiled because going along the Connecticut River,
Yeah.
we are working in the best soils.
Right,
Those are the best soils for that property.
right.
But it's still not A1 soil.
No,
That-
it's probably considered prime, but it's not nearly as good as the stuff you have
Exactly.
down on the
Boiled
river.
is right.
Exactly.
Anyway, I just noted that
Yeah.
it just seemed odd that your corner where you've got your greenhouses also coincides with the absolute best soils on this piece of property.
And if I may, so what Chris is showing here is the kind of the finished product of what we would do after running an outdoor or several outdoor seasons on that parcel. So by all means, we would take advantage of that
Yeah.
if we can. If it's feasible to grow it directly in the soil, we would absolutely want to do that. So this is eventually where we would go to, and if the soil really is good and we're able to regenerate it, then we would 100% contemplate continuing to do that just under hard plastic or glass.
So I have a question, a couple of questions. In your greenhouse, is there a floor or are you dirt?
Well, so I think that goes to Bob's question.
Right, well, so do you have a plan? Is there going to be dirt or a hard floor?
So we have grown in both concrete floors, which are very nice and very easy to clean, and in dirt floor greenhouses. So we'll sort of have to see as we go through the outdoor growing process whether it's feasible to really use the soil or not, and we'll sort of feel our way by, we'll cross the river by feeling the stones.
And
And
I do
also-
think that Gerard has had some bad experience trying to build concrete floors on some of these farm fields out here and is hesitant to do so unless it's absolutely necessary.
Yeah, that was my comment, is like, keeping it as a farm operation, it would, not necessarily having to plant in the ground, but keeping a soil ground might be,
Absolutely, and there's ways to do rolling benches, not on concrete, obviously.
So you're going to be growing in pots,
As Bernie was mentioning,
in containers on tables?
eventually that's where we would want to go because it would maximize our square footage
right.
under the plastic.
but that wouldn't be the case for the fields that you have. like,
Most certainly,
Right.
well,
Maybe.
maybe, depending on the soil.
Control Commission come in on outdoor growing.
There's
presently.
a special license for it, so reports have come out that 10% of the state's power has been consumed by indoor cannabis cultivation. And so as a response to that, they've created a separate license for outdoor cultivation, and the state has awarded it an expedited review process. And so part of, why we love to grow outdoor is because the state has, given this stepped up speed for review of those licenses. And so the CCC is, very much in favor of it, and is very responsive to the needs of outdoor growers.
I got another question. So you're looking to have this be sort of a co-op?
A voluntary co-op.
Voluntary
I like to call
co-op.
it, yeah.
So who regulates, who can be part of your co-op?
Well, we are here as the master developers of the
I
property.
get that part.
Yeah.
I'm talking about with the Cannabis Control Commission. I mean, could I walk up to the Cannabis Control Commission and say, I want to be part of this project?
You would have to come to us as the property developer, and we would negotiate a lease.
But where's the Cannabis Control Commission has to have some oversight about the individual people that are doing this?
Right, and so we would come to a lease agreement with whoever is taking one of these fields, and then they would take that as proof of control of the site, and they would individually apply to the CCC. They'd appear before the select board and before you guys and get their own permitting for that site. So they would start off with the HCA, and I think the town has a pretty, a pretty good template that you've used repeatedly, and so that would be the step for them, and then they'd appear before you guys for their.
So is there a track record on the Cannabis Control Commission's view of this? Has this happened yet someplace? And what's the Cannabis Control Commission? And don't take this as me being against this. I'm just trying to get a lot of information as somebody's very familiar with this process.
Great.
So
Yeah.
so I would then go to the Cannabis Control Commission and say, I've entered an agreement with XYZ company to grow marijuana on 6 acres outdoors.
Yes.
And then that would be, I would be subjected to their
Yes.
scrutiny before I was allowed to do that.
Right, this
All
would
the
not be.
background checks and everything.
All the background checks and everything. So that's what I was like, what is the track record so far? This seems pretty new. So what is the track record of people getting accepted, not getting accepted, the scrutiny about which people go through to be accepted into this program? Not by you, but by the government. I get where you guys are.
Sure.
I'm more concerned about
Who our lessees might be.
and how the Cannabis Control Commission is going to orchestrate who you can have as a leasee.
Yes. So, as Chris mentioned, Bernie, people affiliated with Bernie have a license here. And so we're very familiar with that process.
Right.
And we would be doing our own, background research and credit risk analysis on who our lessees are. And having gone through the process ourselves, we can both assess the potential lessees' ability to navigate that Byzantine bureaucracy, and we can also help them out along the way based on what we've learned.
So do they have to pay, you had to pay a fee to the CCC to get, when you get your license for
Our
this.
license.
So now you're subbing it out, or not subbing it out, but now it's a co-op.
I mean, a
And
co-op.
he and I are members of the,
Yeah.
we want to join your co-op.
Yeah.
Do we have to pay another fee
Yeah,
to
and
CCC?
I think that what may.
I know, that's premature
Yeah.
here. I'm
But
just-
the detail that may be missing here is essentially, these would be independent operators with their own license under the CCC for a particular site that they happen to be leasing from
Right.
Bernie.
Gotcha.
As an independent entity, as far as the CCC is concerned.
We're more like a multi-tenant.
You're the landlord. You're the landlord.
We're a multi-tenant shop lot.
But yeah, for someone who might not have the money to put the infrastructure in for something like
Right.
that.
Exactly. And so we can be a value-add landlord in this sense by doing the assessment of the licensee that comes before, the lessee that comes before us.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions too.
Sure.
So also, I think, I'm curious, one, how many, based on the state, isn't it 50,000 square feet of grow, is that true? Or how? 100,000 square feet is what they're allowed?
Yeah.
So how many, potentially, up to how many different leases would you have on this property is the first question that I have.
As a
If you were to get everything.
Yeah, and it depends on if they're attempting to grow the full 100,000 square feet of canopy, right? So if they're settling for a tier 1 license versus a tier 11 license, we could get many condos here, right? Shop lot tenants, and we could chop it up very small. That would impose a lot of separate metering kinds of expenses.
Like the farm fields in like South Street with the lots
Well,
tiny.
exactly.
Right.
So our strong preference is to work with tenants that would want to grow the maximum on it. It just makes the administration much simpler for us and the kind of the shared.
And importantly, 100,000 square feet of grow takes much more than 100,000 square feet of land.
Right.
Right. So I guess again, repeating the question again,
Yeah.
let's just say you had all 100,000 square foot
Yeah.
tenants. How many people would that? How many leasees would you have?
I think it's sensible to think about it in terms of 3 or 4 tenants.
Okay.
And then we could go to 10. I mean, we
Right.
could go to 20 if they were much
And then the
smaller.
other just comment that I have is not really a question. That was my main question, but also I like I think the CCC also is open to, I don't know if they're expediting them, but licenses for more marginalized communities, people who
Yes.
might not have access to entry level
Yes.
to enter the market, do
Yes.
something like this. So
Yes.
hopefully you all are seeing this too as an opportunity to make those available, pieces of that available to someone like that.
So are the greenhouses also part of this? Is that yours? Are the greenhouses yours, or are the greenhouses going to be subleased to somebody else?
And so that's part of the conversation for
Right.
us is, how much of the capital investment do we want to make up front? Are we doing a build to suit? Are we doing, well, look, we know that this works well because because Bernie is doing it elsewhere. And then, offering that to the market at a premium. Or are we waiting for the lessee to come and do it themselves? There's many, many ways to skin this cat. But, as property developers, this is kind of the concept that we have. And, we would work with whoever the tenant is to make financing available, to work with them to select general contractors.
So is there a possibility that no one would want the greenhouses and that would
Yes.
become another in-ground grow area?
Yes, very
Okay.
much.
Okay.
Very much.
I have a comment, if I may. So, notwithstanding Bernie's earlier comment about his soils down on the flats, but this area of town between North Hatfield Road and Straits Road is actually turning into a very nice diversified farming region. The young woman who was just here earlier runs Black Birch Vineyard, which is just a couple lot parcels to the north. The property immediately to the south of that has been protected with conservation easements by the town. The property to the south of that is actually still in farm use and has a house and a barn on it that currently is not necessarily protected or in active agricultural use. But then the property immediately to the north of yours and to the south of that is a really nice young family running a small animal operation. So having this be in agriculture, new age agriculture, if you will, fits perfectly with this sort of diversification of this area in agriculture. And in my mind, as we just saw with the A&R recently, I mean, there's the potential for houses out here as well. So having this in agriculture is great. All that being said, to the extent that these greenhouses can be ground-based grow as opposed to putting in macadam or concrete or something like that, all the better, because who knows what's going to happen? Who knew 2 years ago that we'd all be sitting here with masks on, and who knew a year ago that we would still be sitting here with masks on? So the more flexibility and opportunity you have for agriculture in the future, as Bernie knows, 25, 30 years ago, all we grew around here was turf.
Yep.
And now look at what we're growing. I mean, we've got so many different crops being grown here, and now we've got a new one. So to the extent that we can keep that flexible, just like solar posts as opposed to, footings. So,
And also, this one I think is also preserved.
yes,
farmland.
yeah, the
There's-
farmland immediately.
There's a lot of
there's
preserved
proje-
farmland all
protected
around that
there.
area,
Yeah.
so.
So one more question. Vehicular access will strictly be off of Straits Road?
Not necessarily. This field in particular may be most easily accessed through an existing farm road that
Yeah.
runs this property line.
Okay. But that's an existing road?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and so,
It's farm road.
Right. But
yes.
as long as it's there.
and all acknowledging that this is just a very light draft plan and
Right.
not anything. Based on what their original questions were to the board about whether we would be, one, open to something like this, and two, about how we would interpret the allowing of this leasing based on how the word may is in our bylaws.
And just to sort of clarify, the other thinking behind that is, in Whately's bylaw, it's very specific that the special permit goes to the licensee. And so in that case, we had a similar project at the big greenhouse across the street from Bernie's strawberry fields.
On the line there.
On Christian Lane.
Christian Lane,
Yeah,
yep.
near the police station and fire station. And so it was necessary to actually engage the tenant and identify them in order to complete the special permit. And so the question here is as much, will at least one of those licensees need to be on board before the special permit can be granted? Or can the special permit be granted to the landowner and then, would there be conditions for the licensees to come before the board? These sorts of things we want to understand before they get too far into this.
Right, and the precedent that would be set depending on how we interpret this also.
Exactly.
I mean, every town in the Commonwealth is going through this type of,
Yeah.
when these questions kind of come
Yeah,
up.
and so that is just one simple sentence in here that stuck out to me as really important as to how we're going to do this procedurally.
And going back to Jimmy's question earlier about, is this unprecedented in the state? It is by no means unprecedented.
Oh, good.
There are large multi-tenant projects. One notable one is American, spelled with 2 N's, which is a publicly listed cannabis company that has 1 million square feet of developable space
In this state?
in Massachusetts.
Wow, cool.
Yeah.
And again, at least, this is a small local farmer, and, it's not
Right.
big multi-million
Right.
dollar
Well,
corporation
and
doing that.
it's well known, my feelings about the cannabis in this town. So don't take mine as criticism. I'm just trying to look out for every possible situation that might arise from somebody else's opinion in the neighborhood. One of the roles of the planning board is to protect the town and protect the neighborhood. So as much as we might be all about this, it's important to let the situation play out with potential neighbors. I actually got a call about today already.
So, and so I think we would need to, before us making a decision, engage our town council with that particular question. And just to make sure that we aren't putting ourselves in a position, or by us making the decision, who are not legal scholars. So I will reach out to our town attorney by the end of the week, and I will have Gerard forward you all the response to that. Just so you're aware, we're going to put it on the agenda for February 2nd, just so we can update the public again with what our town attorney has decided. That doesn't necessarily mean you will have to be there for that meeting, but just letting you know that that'll probably be on the agenda with whatever response comes out from him. And it usually takes, I'd say, within the following week, I'll get something probably sometime next week.
What about, I have a question.
So can't say yes or no to the plan, but I think this is a large parcel. It is likely to be developed in one way or another by someone at some point. And so
Agriculture's
the
good.
idea of, albeit pretty, industrial agriculture, seeing it as open space with a fence around it is something that I pending all the whole application is sound, and we address the needs of the community and the neighborhood, is something I think that I would vote for.
What about water for this project?
We had a well drilling company come out and put a couple points down, and they said there's enough water.
Is there town water? There's no town water, I take it. So you'd be providing your own well water.
Yeah.
Any other questions? I think the next step is just us reaching out to the town council on this.
Great.
Thanks for coming with a very well done, very specific proposal with lots of time put in, obviously.
It's not specific.
Yeah, right, but I mean, you're very specific about what your goals were. There's no hidden agenda here, and I think that it's real important when you're talking about this subject for town perception. You need to come with everything out in the open.
Yeah.
All right, any other questions? Otherwise, or other questions from you all?
I don't think so. I think, it'll be very good to get that answer, and I look forward to giving a very exhaustive presentation on this in a couple months.
Thanks.
Thanks a lot.
Good work, guys.
All right, next item on the agenda, related to what I was just saying about having a follow-up conversation to make sure the public is aware of what our town attorney has come back and said. Hi, Mike, welcome. We have Mike Poshik here now joining us. We had a discussion not at our December meeting, but at our November meeting, related to 137 North Hatfield Road. There was a question from the Omasta family, had their attorney, Tom Reedy, asking a question about our bylaws to see if the town meeting, the town meeting warrant article that was submitted, approved by the planning board, or allowed, sorry, I'm being a little distracted. What's going on to my left? basically, what Attorney Reedy was asking was if the change in size of the lot that they were looking to have the zone change for from partially rural the frontage of rural residential, the back part of light industrial, if the size of the lot were to change, if that would be enough of a difference to allow it at town meeting, this coming meeting, as a warrant article, because currently our bylaws say you're not allowed to bring the same warrant article to 2 town meetings in a row. You're going to have to wait 2 years if the planning board does not endorse that particular warrant article. And so I hope I explained that well enough. So I brought that question to our town attorney, Attorney Mullen, and I'm just going to read his response just so the public, we have this in our meeting minutes, and so the public is aware of what our town attorney said related to that request from Mr. Reedy. So I'm just going to read. Stephanie, I'm writing in response to the email sent to me yesterday by the town administrator, who is copied here, in connection with the matter we discussed by telephone this morning. As I understand it, the owners of land on North Hatfield Road attempted at a 2021 annual town meeting to change the zoning of their property, which is currently partly rural residential district and partly in the light industrial zone district, so that the whole of the lot would be zoned light industrial. The planning board did not recommend the change. You told me today that your board was neutral on the issue. Town meeting did not enact the change. Currently before your board is approval not required A&R plan that would divide the lot in question into 4 separate buildable lots. You ask whether, after dividing the lot in that manner, the owners can present a new zoning amendment to the town meeting to rezone lots 2, 3, and 4 to light industrial, leaving lot 1 unchanged. That would result in the rezoning of the vast bulk of the area comprising the original large lot. Section 8.10 of our zoning bylaws, the Town of Hatfield zoning bylaws, provides, quote, no proposed change or amendment to this bylaw which has been unfavorably acted upon by the town meeting shall be considered anew on its merits by that body within 2 years following the date of such unfavorable action, unless adoption of the proposed change or amendment is recommended in the final report of the planning board, end quote. This section mirrors similar language in General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 5, as we discussed the, quote, recommendation, end quote, of the planning board mentioned in the statute and in our bylaw is the recommendation made in advance of the first town meeting vote, not the one made before the second. See Penn v. Barnstable, 96 Mass Appellate Court 205 in 2019, and Penn v. Barnstable, 2019 Mass Lexus 740 Land Court, copies of which are attached. If, as you say, the planning board did not recommend favorable action in the 2021 rezoning article, then the same article may not be, quote, considered anew, end quote, by town meeting for a period of 2 years from the date of the 2021 annual town meeting. But would a change affecting only 3 of the 4 lots comprising the land previously attempted to be rezoned constitute the same amendment for purposes of the 2-year bar? I believe it would, based on the holdings of the attached cases, which are among the very few touching on the issue. The land court held that, quote, changes in the degree and not in the type, end quote, of the amendment are insufficient to avoid the 2-year bar. The appeals court said that proposed amendments, quote, are the same for purposes of the 2-year bar if they share the same fundamental or essential character with little substantive difference, end quote. Both courts looked to the analogous issue of whether a zoning amendment passed by town meeting differs so much from the amendment advertised in the notice of the planning board's hearing as to render passage invalid. I have no doubt that the 2021 annual town meeting could have changed the zoning for less than the full lot at issue, say only for the area comprising the proposed lots 2, 3, and 4, notwithstanding that the planning board notice described an amendment that would change the zoning for the full lot. I therefore believe that a new proposed amendment that would change the zoning only for lots 2, 3, and 4 would be a, quote, change in the degree and not in the type, end quote, of amendment, and that the two amendments would, quote, share the same fundamental or essential character with little substantive difference, end quote. Whew. That was a mouthful and a lot of legal jargon. And so, in short, what Attorney Mullen is saying is that he does not think that the proposed warrant article, the thought of a warrant article for this year's town meeting that would be trying to zone change light from the rural residential piece to entirely light industrial on just a portion of that lot that we voted on last year. He does not think it would be a valid warrant article, and they would have to wait until next fiscal years to meet the 2-year mark before bringing it before the board. So there we go. And we have not heard anything else since then, since we gave them the reply back from our attorney, Tom Mullen.
I think they've moved, the Motika family has moved their focus to this project.
Yeah.
The one that we just heard, the Smiarowski project.
So I think suffice it to say, this closes the chapter, at least for now, on this particular request.
They will be back.
On this request,
On
yes.
this request.
They will be back. Jimmy and Laurie Motika inherited an enormous amount of property from Luana, whoever that is, their aunt. Yeah, they own the entire field on Depot Road from Straits to the post office, basically. They own a lot of stuff down there. They're going to be working, coming to us with proposals. This I've heard through the family, of things to do to earn them a lot of money. So this will not be the first proposal we see from the Motika family.
So those 4 parcels are just 4 building lots now, I guess.
4 building lots.
Unless something else comes about. Yes. And yeah, no, we haven't heard anything else since then. And so if they reach out with a different idea or plan, we will all know. And it'll be on the agenda for the public to in a future meeting. All right. Whew. That was a mouthful. One of the last items, well, I guess there's 2 items left on the agenda. The next one here is the continued discussion on the master plan committee that we're looking to, not us, but the select board is looking to establish and get going. And related to that, there's a draft notice that, although we are not the one launching this initiative, we are ones that are going to be, I'm sure, consulted at least. And so we have been asked to take a look at the notice that the select board is likely to put out sometime next week or the week after, Gerard?
Sometime soon after their meeting, depending on if they review and, accept this post draft.
And so this is for, the committee will be made up of representatives from a bunch of different commissions and boards in town. But then there's also an opportunity here for some at-large community members to apply to be a part of this master plan initiative. And so this is the public notice that we have a draft of here. It looks like we could, if, pending select board conversation and confirmation, have up to 3 potentially at-large community members that are not a part of any sort of board or committee being a part of this master plan initiative. And just so the public knows, the boards and committees that we're looking to have representatives on this master plan initiative comprise of the Agricultural Commission, the Community Preservation Commission, the Conservation Commission, the Open Space Commission, the Planning Board, Public Works, Recreation Commission, Redevelopment Authority, and the School Committee. And then there's kind of a question of should there be any other boards or committees added. That's what the select board's going to be looking at. And then how many community members, at-large members, will we be asking to be a part of this?
So do you know if they're proposing to put somebody from the select board on this also?
The select board is managing the master plan committee, and they have to approve anything.
So they can't be on it.
I don't know if, I don't know if that's
Seemed to
the
be
reason
somewhat
why.
of a conflict of interest.
Yeah. And then also I'm noticing here, and also because I see Kim Baker's face right in front of me, there's no one from the Finance Committee on here, and I don't know if that's something
I think
would
that should be on there for sure.
because there could be impacts to any, like everybody's saying, let's put sidewalks all across town or something. There could be, which I think would be cool, there would be implications finance-wise for that, so.
Yeah, I think we talked about that the last time around, that having a finance committee member, because of course, all of this, particularly infrastructure, is going to cost money.
Right.
And good planning should go hand in hand with infrastructure planning.
Right, and also when we think about rezoning, like how much for development and the impact of that development versus residential development and any sort of,
So right now,
income that
right now, there's 9 board committees that are anticipated. And so if you add finance, that would be 10.
Then they had, what, 3 at large?
Yeah, well, I was thinking that at a minimum, it should be an odd number so that you can at least get a majority if you had to.
Yeah.
So that would be 10 boards?
That, if you had 10 boards
10,
and then
and
3
then 3 would be
members.
13.
Recognizing that obviously everybody that's on here, except for Public Works, everybody else is without a doubt a town resident because they're on a committee that is appointed. They're not an employee.
Right.
And so they're, and except for ourselves, everybody else that's on here is a volunteer.
Not, yeah.
Public Works?
So
that's the
Public
only
Works would be actually an employee, right?
Right.
We don't have a Public Works.
Right, it would be a
oversight committee.
DPW employee.
Right. So you're getting a lot of residences, I guess is my point, but having 3 at large, if you did add the 10, then that would be 13.
And then also thinking about, we had a pretty large committee for 350th committee, and
Right.
there was troubles with quorum sometimes,
Right.
and so making sure you have enough people that you could have a quorum, but also not too big of a committee that prevents quorum is also something.
I think the 3 people from the community are incredibly important for transparency to the rest of the town.
And I'm hopeful that they maybe will fill other holes
Right.
from folks that, and may hopefully look a little different
Right.
than.
I know
the
that,
rest of
I
the
know that
makeup
Mickey
of these.
Sanderson is a Realtor. She is very, very anxious to be on this.
Or apply for that, yeah.
Apply for this, yeah. She's a Realtor. She has nothing to do with any of our boards or anything.
So we did have a Realtor on the Master Plan Committee the last
Yeah.
time. It wasn't a slot, it just happened to be that Dave Dulong
Yeah.
was a member.
As like an at-large committee
Yeah,
member.
and that was really helpful.
That's what I'm thinking, if we're talking about development here and we're talking about wanting to promote residential development in this town to a certain extent, then a Realtor would be a really good asset to have.
Yeah, and hopefully we get, hey, public, once we get this noted, get your application in, because hopefully there'll be a good pool of people that
right.
the select board can really choose from to kind of counter the strengths and weaknesses of the folks that'll be comprised of from the committees. And I know they're looking to get those names from all the committees sooner before they select these at-large folks. And so it says, the draft notice says that they'd like the deadline for the letter of interest by February 28th, pending that they get this all going. So, maybe we need to decide tonight, or at least at the very least, we should have a conversation tonight about interest in serving on this committee, but I don't think based on this time that's on here, we could probably wait to hold an official vote at our February 2nd meeting. Does that sound right, Gerard?
Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
That seems to make sense. The other thing too that I think the select board hopefully will make known at their meetings and is that in addition to the at-large members, if things go similarly the way it did the last time, is there was a lot of opportunity for the public to, writ large, to contribute to this. There were surveys done, there were community meetings held, there were presentations presented around town for people to provide input as well as to react to things as they were coming out of the Master Planning Committee. And like I said, there was a fairly substantial survey that was done at the time. And so I'm hoping that that kind of activity is done again.
Right. I wonder if that survey is, the survey itself is available still or
Yeah, Marlene,
retrievable.
actually, I talked to
Probably got
Marlene
the whole
'cause,
package.
yeah, I brought in what I had kept from it and asked her if she needed any of it, and she said she's got boxes of
Great.
stuff from
Great.
archives of what was available from
Right.
last time around.
So we can look at positives, and we could look at any things that we consider were not necessarily the best way it could be done and rectify them, or whoever's doing it.
Yeah.
Was there anybody from Pioneer Valley Planning Commission as an advisor or?
That's who they're using. It's Pioneer Valley Planning is going to be the consultants, if you
Right.
will,
this
much
one
as the,
too,
and
yeah.
this one, yeah. And they were the consultants last time. They were? Yeah, they were. The other thing that we did the last time, which I thought really helped out a lot, was once the master plan had gotten to a point, say, similar to where Chris Chamberlain was, where it wasn't quite set in stone, but there was a good idea as to where things were going based on the input that was received in the conversations. This was 20 years ago, so a overhead projector presentation was put together. And a couple of us were dispatched, and we arranged to actually go to other people's meetings.
Oh, and
Yeah,
present
so
the
we
meeting.
went to the Legion at one of their monthly meetings. We went to all of the churches at the time at their monthly their monthly sort of meetings of their a group that worked on bazaars and things like that.
Right.
So we went to the Council on Aging, and that way we were going to people's meetings as opposed to them coming to, in addition to the meetings that the planning board held, or the master plan committee held.
You were like the invited speaker to.
Right, exactly, yeah, and
So it seems to make sense that put the onus of responsibility to bring the information to the town, as opposed for the town to have to come get the information at somebody's convenience other than their own.
right, exactly.
So to me, that should definitely be part of what's going to go, although we're not in charge. That should be one of the strong recommendations that we make, is that, let's take this to the people.
Right.
And let the people have input.
Exactly,
As we see, you can't count on people coming.
right.
Thanks for coming, Kim.
Your only audience member left. Oh, and I think, do we have anyone else? I don't know.
No, I think
Eric left.
Eric left.
Eric is here.
Yeah.
Ooh, all right. So yeah, at the very least, what do folks think about this draft notice? And at least first, we can talk about that.
Seems fine to me.
Seems fine to me, too. It needs to have the Finance Committee added to it, for sure.
Yep. And then, whatever, Gerard, at the select board meeting, would it be helpful to have someone from the planning board there to give input, or is it like, no, it's their thing, they're doing that?
It's up to you. If one of you would like to join, I'm sure they would welcome you for input.
Well, yeah, I'm
And
just
then
stating it.
obviously, I can relay any messages
Yeah.
to Marlene, and you can also follow up with an email with her as well.
All right, I
can definitely relay all
Yeah,
the
and
feedback.
yeah, and I would just like to go just to thank them for moving this along, because it's something that us as a planning board see more of the impacts of this more on a meeting to meeting basis. So, thank you. And then any discussion, or do we want to wait till next meeting to talk about the representative for that? I know a couple of you sit on a couple of different committees that could, that might put you on there or not, or that kind of thing. So I don't know if you want to have that conversation now or wait till February.
Well, we could conceivably have 3 members of the planning board on this master plan committee if we wanted, if we played our cards right.
Right, because you're on agricultural
Commission,
and,
CPC, and Paul is
Well,
on
I'm on
CPC, and
CPC.
you're on the planning board.
And I'm on the planning board.
well, I mean, I feel like I said, we're probably going to feel the impacts of the
Yeah.
rollout, and need to understand everything. All of us will need to understand the updated zoning bylaws and maps and all of that more than anyone else.
Right. Well, I think that if there were more than one of us on that board, would not be a bad thing.
Yeah. All right, so we can wait till February,
Yeah.
but know that we have to vote on the representative in February, and maybe by then, Gerard, you'll have a list of who else will be on the board and stuff from other committees as well by then. Because I also would like to see a lot of different representation, not just from committees, but I mean like age and race and all that. So hopefully we can get that going. The last official item on the agenda before we approve minutes is just an update, just letting you know that I submitted our budget to Marlene. I requested, like we mentioned, like we all agreed upon, I requested the same requests as last year. I reached out to Whately's planning board asking them if they have a paid part-time planner in order to arm myself with some hard facts about neighboring communities with paid planners on their payrolls. So I reached out and got crickets because it was like that form, you know, you send it. It's like the way we have it on our website. Like you send it to the chair and it sends it and sometimes gets in your spam folder and that kind of thing. So I think I'm going to call they'll probably call their town whoever their administrative assistant is, or their town administrator, and kind of asking that question directly as opposed to relying on the email. But I looked back on that timeline of when we would be bringing, having that meeting with Finance Committee and Select Board regarding our budget, and it's like there's no hard date yet. So it'll come at some point, and I'll let you all know, because hopefully, like I said, we agreed at last meeting, maybe getting a couple of us there to talk about that, and especially if we're having a master plan, thinking about a master plan, having some of this, having a part-time planner for this, at least maybe while the master plan is happening at the very least, might be worthwhile having.
Let me know if you run into trouble reaching someone, because I happen to know a good colleague of mine is in the ag land trust world, is the spouse of a member of the planning board.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, and then I was going to look at, based on what they said, then reach out and to other neighbor communities that might be similar size, or at least in, population, to see what they do for that services, if they do anything outside of Pioneer Valley Planning Commission or not, or in their case, Franklin. Well, they would probably still be part of
FERCog, yeah.
FERCog if they offer any services. And again, not to discount what Pioneer Valley Planning Commission provides, but a lot of it is grant funded, and we're tied to a lot of constraints around their availability and capacity. That concludes agenda items, unless there's any sort of other board discussion or updates from anyone here. Otherwise, we can take a look at the minutes.
I have a comment. There's only 4 of us. Was Mike Poshik?
I wasn't here.
Okay.
You weren't here too.
Well, I was here via phone, but.
Yeah, which is allowed under the current sort of emergency rules.
Okay. And there were no attendees, I take it. It says none, but nobody showed up. Huh?
Yep. Yeah, that was the shortest, that was a 30-minute meeting.
Yep.
We had to find something to do.
Yeah.
I make a motion to approve the minutes as written.
I'll second.
December 1st, 2021.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Any opposed? Nope. Okay. Minutes approved. And we have our next scheduled meeting is February 2nd. Is everyone able to make that one, you think? Yeah?
Yes, I can.
All right. And I guess we're going to kind of wait and see whether we're going to do this virtually or not, depending on COVID numbers and restrictions and whatnot. So we don't have to make that decision until we post the meeting, which should be 48 hours ahead of time, as Gerard said, but we should probably have an email. If you could send an email like a couple weeks or a week ahead of time and just figuring out what people feel comfortable doing, that would be great. All right. Motion to close the meeting?
I make a motion, we close tonight's meeting.
Second.
Any discussion? All right. And all in favor?
Aye.
Oh, we need to sign those.
Yep.
All right. And now meeting is adjourned at 7:16. Thanks for coming, Kim.